The streets of Manhattan buzzed with their usual chaos: honking taxis, hurried pedestrians, and the distant sound of a street performer strumming a guitar. Barron Trump, now 18 and forging his own path, had just left a small charity event downtown. The experience weighed heavily on his mind as he strolled through the city, dressed simply in a navy jacket and jeans. His hands were tucked into his pockets, shielding against the crisp autumn air. Barron often took these walks to clear his head, reflecting on the privileges he had and the responsibilities they carried. His family name was something he could never escape, but he was beginning to understand that he could use it to make a difference. Lost in thought, he almost missed the faint voice that broke through the city noise. "Excuse me, can you spare $1?" The voice was small, hesitant, yet it pierced through the noise with a weight that made Barron stop. He turned and spotted a boy sitting on the sidewalk, no older than 10. A crumpled cardboard sign lay next to him. It read, "Hungry and alone. Please help." The boy's name was Chris. His clothes were thin and worn, no match for the biting cold. His face was pale with exhaustion, and his brown eyes held a dullness as if the world had drained him of hope. Beside him sat a small, tattered backpack, his only possession. For a moment, Barron stood frozen. He had seen homelessness before, but something about this boy struck him deeper. This wasn't just poverty, it was abandonment, a life hanging by a thread. He approached slowly, crouching down to meet Chris at eye level. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The boy hesitated, as if unsure whether to trust him. "Chris," he finally whispered. Barron nodded. "Where's your family? Are you out here by yourself?" Chris lowered his head, his fingers gripping the straps of his backpack. "My dad, he's gone," his voice cracked. "And my mom, she said she'd come back for me. But she didn't." Barron's chest tightened. He sat down on the cold sidewalk beside Chris, ignoring the curious glances of passers-by. "How long have you been out here? A few days? Maybe more? I don't know. I get hungry, and I don't know what else to do." Barron swallowed the ache rising in his throat. He had spent years surrounded by comfort and security. Now, face to face with a boy who had nothing, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "You're not alone anymore, Chris," Barron said firmly. "We'll figure this out, together." Chris looked at him, confusion flickering in his tired eyes. "Why are you helping me? Nobody else stops." Barron offered a soft smile. "Because everyone deserves someone to listen, and you deserve better than this." He reached into his wallet and handed Chris a $20 bill. But he knew that money alone wouldn't fix this. He had resources, connections, and he was going to use them. As Chris clutched the bill tightly, Barron pulled out his phone. "I'm going to make a few calls. I know someone who can help find your mom and make sure you're safe." "My mom doesn't want me," Chris said quietly, tears threatening to spill. Barron placed a warm hand on his shoulder. "I don't believe that. Sometimes people lose their way, but it doesn't mean they stop loving you. Let me try, okay?" Chris hesitated before nodding slowly, a glimmer of hope breaking through the darkness. For the next hour, Barron sat beside Chris, listening as the boy shared his story. His father had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving his mother, Jessica, to care for him alone. But the weight of grief had consumed her. Addiction became her refuge, pulling her further away from the boy who needed her most. "She wasn't always like this," Chris murmured. "She used to make me pancakes on Sundays and tell me bedtime stories. But after Dad died, everything changed." Barron listened in silence, his heart heavy. This boy had been abandoned by the very person meant to protect him. But he still clung to the memory of who his mother used to be. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. Barron's family contact, a woman he trusted to handle delicate situations, stepped out and approached with a warm smile. "Hi, Chris," she said softly. "We're going to help you." Chris gripped Barron's sleeve, fear flashing in his eyes. "You're not leaving, are you?" Barron shook his head. "I'm staying. We'll figure this out. Together." As they drove to a temporary shelter, Barron quietly made more phone calls. His resolve hardened with every word. He wouldn't stop until Chris was safe, until his family was whole again. Hours later, Barron received news. Jessica had been found. She was holed up in a rundown motel on the city's edge, broken and distrustful of anyone offering help. "She doesn't believe anyone cares," the social worker told Barron. He thought for a moment before answering. "Let me talk to her." The next morning, Barron stood outside the motel door. The air was thick with the smell of stale cigarettes. When the door creaked open, a woman stood before him. Hollow eyes, disheveled hair, and a weariness that hung heavy in the air. "What do you want?" Jessica asked defensively. Barron met her gaze, his voice steady but gentle. "I'm here because of Chris. He's safe now, and he wants to see you." Her face crumpled at the mention of her son. "Chris, you found him?" "He's been waiting for you," Barron said. "But before you see him, I want to help you get better. For him, and for yourself." Tears welled in her eyes. "I can't. I've already failed him." Barron took a step closer. "He still loves you, and it's not too late. Let us help." Jessica's defenses cracked under the weight of his words. Finally, she nodded. "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't have to do it alone," Barron promised. Weeks turned into months. Jessica committed herself to recovery, and with Barron's unwavering support, Chris began to trust again. Barron secured a safe home for them, a place where they could rebuild their lives together. One night, as they shared a simple dinner in their new apartment, Jessica looked at Barron, tears shining in her eyes. "You didn't just give us a home," she said softly. "You gave us hope." Barron smiled, his heart full. Everyone deserves a second chance. And as he stepped into the night air, he knew this was only the beginning. Because sometimes, all it takes is believing in someone when they've stopped believing in themselves.